Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University, and welcome to the second video in week number 4 of our class, Principles of Interface Design. In this video, let's focus on designing a virtual museum using PowerPoint. In week number 4 of our class, we have 4 videos, and this video is going to focus on creating a virtual museum using PowerPoint skills and techniques. The overall purpose of week number 4 is to look at sound navigation. So our first video dealt with menus and navigation in general. Our third video is designing a PowerCast and video. And our last video for this week will deal with designing a Prezi. But for now, let's look at virtual museums. Virtual museums were first introduced at ISTE at their conference in 2005, and ISTE is the International Society for Technology in Education. And one of the pioneers of creating the virtual museum is Dr. Christy Keeler. The concept of creating a virtual museum involves creating virtual rooms. So we use drawing tools that are available in PowerPoint to design a series of these virtual rooms. And then we create an illusion of having a floor plan or a map or a virtual building that we walk through, so to speak, virtually. And really we're using action buttons to navigate to other screens. In each room, we're going to hang artifacts, or in other words, like virtual pictures. So a student will see a picture, they can click on one of the pictures in that particular room, and each picture will navigate the learner to a separate slide in which that particular artifact will be enhanced. There'll be more information elaborated on, and more information will be available. And then they can simply click to return to that room, or they can click to return to the main floor of the gallery. So it's innovative. And what's really interesting to me is it's using and pushing the envelope of PowerPoint so that a teacher does not have to work with some very involved app or software. We can use tools that we already know. We're just going to use them in innovative and creative ways. For example, on this screen, we have just navigated from a lobby area into a room. In this room, you can see 3 artifacts, 3 paintings hanging on the wall. Now, the user can click on any or all 3 of those paintings in order to navigate to a separate room where that information will be, like more elaborate information will be presented about that particular artifact. Ultimately, the user will be able to click and return back to the lobby once again. To create the virtual museum, we're going to use Insert Shapes, one of the standard PowerPoint drawing tools. We're going to use simple shapes like rectangles to create the walls, the ceilings, and the floors. We're going to use the trapezoid tool in order to create angled walls and also to create angled pictures that we're going to hang in our virtual museum, our virtual gallery. Then we could use a variety of other tools too in case we want to add other special effects and little details. So let's use these basic PowerPoint drawing tools in order to create a ceiling, a floor, and walls, and finally frames to hold pictures. I'm going to start by dragging out a rectangle, and I'm going to just fill it with a texture. And I'll do the same for the bottom, which will be the floor. And now over the top of these, so if I don't do these first, I have to send them to the back. Here's a rectangle for the first wall. Here's a trapezoid that I'm angling down to create some perspective into the inner wall. So then there's another rectangle, and here's another trapezoid, which I flip. And then here's my last wall. So here we've got ceiling, floor, and walls, and now we're going to drag out some shapes to create the straightforward picture holders. Now we also have those angled walls, so we'll deal with those next. To create some angled picture holders, let's start by inserting a trapezoid, and then let's rotate the trapezoid by 90 degrees, either to the right or flip it over to the left in order to take up those angled wall spaces. When we add the walls, here they are, and the ideal is, notice on that left picture, that the lines, if we were to follow the line from the top and the bottom of the picture, to create the perspective, it should, in the middle of the next wall, those two lines should intersect and meet at a point. Now, how do we hang the pictures now on the walls inside these frames that we created? Start by clicking on one of those picture frames, one of those shapes that we just inserted, either a trapezoid or a rectangle, and then right-click and select Shape Fill and Picture. So when I select Picture, I can now go out and locate a picture. So the picture I locate can be something, some artifact that I want the students to see. I could have scans of their work, and we could hang those, so to speak, on the walls, or we could ask the students to insert different examples of something and hang those items on the walls. So after we do that, the issue becomes with those angled graphics, how are we going to make them angle up properly? Well, to correct, because you're going to find immediately that it's going to need to be corrected, because it's either going to be 90 degrees to the left, or it's going to be upside down, depending how you rotated that shape. So what we have to do is go in to correct this and say Format Picture, and then on the bottom where it says Rotate with the Shape, remove that check mark. Once you uncheck that, the graphic should be lined up as you initially inserted it, and not how the trapezoid was rotated in order to create the perspective. So let's go out and let's do a live demo of this. Let me start off with a blank screen, and let me go out to Insert Shapes, and I'm going to select a rectangle. So let me start with the rectangle, and I'll do roughly half of the screen, and I'm going to insert that, and I'm going to do Shape Fill. So here's Shape Format and Fill, and I'm going to choose a texture for this, but again, there are gradients and graphics and pictures and so on that you can select from. So I'm going to do this as a lighter color for balance purpose as my ceiling, and then I'm going to insert another shape of the same kind, and no one's going to see the whole background here, so it doesn't matter if you overlap it. And let me go out and do Shape Fill, and let me select, I think I'll do a texture, and I'll choose a darker color this time, and that's going to be my floor. So again, to be in balance, lighter color up top, darker color, heavier color on the bottom. Now let's go and let's create some walls. So I'm going to start off with a rectangle to start, and I can make the walls whatever color I desire. And if your students are creating one of these virtual museums for you, they'll have a lot of fun with these little details. So I'm going to select one of these gradients, and then make that a little smaller for now, and I can adjust those as I go. I'm going to copy and paste that, so I'll have a second one over here. I'm going to use this line up tool so that I know that they're in alignment, the top and the bottom edges. And I may have to make that just a little bit smaller as I'm looking at it to allow enough room. So again, we adjust as we go. I'll take one of these, copy it, paste it. I'll use that line up tool to get it right in here. And this one I'm going to have to adjust in a moment from now. But let me get that toward the center, equidistant on each side. Now, let me go out and get the trapezoid. So here in my, once you use it, this tool will appear in your recently used shapes. I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to align the top. Now, I know I'm going to have to flip this. So let me do a flip. And let me align the top and the bottom on the left-hand side. So top and bottom. Good. And now I'm going to move this in a little more. And now I see what height this middle panel has to be to finish creating that perspective. And I'll do the same thing with the bottom edge. So notice my top and bottom edges are now touching this trapezoid. Now that I have the trapezoid, I can copy and paste that, and all I have to do is flip it over here because it should be roughly the same size. Again, I can adjust it in case there's a little difference. All right, looks good. So here I have my walls. Now I'm going to go in and hang some pictures. And of course I can put some text in here and so on. But I'm going to start by inserting a shape. And the first shape I'm going to insert is a rectangle. And the color here won't matter because we're going to change that up very quickly. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it. And I'll use that line up tool so I can see the top edges and bottom edges are aligned. I'm going to do one more paste, and I'll do the same thing over here. And notice I'm using the aligning tool to make sure that the top and the bottom, those dotted lines, are going across, so all three of these are exactly equidistant from the top and the bottom. And now let's go in and let's create the trapezoids. In fact, before I create the trapezoid, let me show you just how to insert the picture here. If I go to Shape Format, and go to Shape Format and Shape Fill. And here I'm going to go for a picture. Now, I don't have any particular pictures right now, so I'm just going to go out and grab some stock images, just whatever is appearing. I'm going to say, okay, let me insert this one, and it inserts it into that shape. I would now do that with these other pieces. And again, I would have some particular graphic that I want to insert. Right now, I'm just doing something generic. Now, let's go and insert trapezoids on these two in order to create that perspective. So let me go in and say, insert a shape. And once again, I'm going to get a trapezoid. Now, it's going to be just straight up and down at this point. I'm going to add some color here just so we can see it better. But again, the color won't matter because we're going to quickly insert something in there. I'm going to angle this to the right. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Again, I'm looking at the top line and the bottom line here so that these are angling up. And if I need to, see this little handle, this extra handle, I can change this. And keep in mind that ideally this angle coming down and this angle coming up, they should meet over here in the middle in order to create the true perspective. Now once I have this, I can copy this, I can paste it, I can take it over here, and now, because there's going to be symmetry here, I'm going to simply have to flip it over. And I'm watching the top line and the bottom line with that angle up tool, so these are top and bottom are equal here. They're both aligned to the top and bottom, which is good. Now let's go and insert a graphic here. Again, I don't have any particular graphic right now for this purpose, so I'm just going to Shape Format. I'm going to say Shape Fill, and I'm going to find a picture. And for my purpose, I'm just going to go out and find any picture that appears here. So I'm going to take this sailboat. So here it is. Oh, and look, it did recognize that we flipped the trapezoid over. The way we correct that is when we go to Shape, I'm going to go to Shape Format here, and what we want to do is make sure I'm in the right place. What we want to do is, so let me click on that shape. Let me right-click on it, and let me say Format the Picture. When we see Format Picture, here's a key thing. I'm going to click into this very first set of options. Here on the bottom it says Rotate with the Shape. Notice how this graphic is improperly lined up. I'm going to say Rotate with Shape. Oh, now that fixes it. So let me do that one more time over here, because that's, I think, the trickiest thing of all. I'm going to go out, and I'm going to do a shape fill. I'm going to go ahead and insert a picture. And again, I don't have any particulars now, so I'm just going out and getting something. So here's a nice kitchen scene. I'm going to take that. And there it is. But remember, we rotated that trapezoid. So if I didn't see this appearing, this dialog, I would right-click over this to format the picture, and then I click on this very first set of options here, and it says Rotate with the Shape. Remove that checkbox. Now, if I continued adding these other pictures, and then if we continue to make them hot, then we're able to jump to other rooms here. So let's take a look at that next. So how do we connect these to another room where we could go in and actually view each of these artifacts, whatever they will be, and learn more about them? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to start by, I'm going to click on this very first artifact, and I'm going to say Insert an Action. We looked at action buttons and how they can navigate us to different places. So I'm just going to navigate us to, in this case, the next slide, the only one that I have created in this presentation so far. But the way I would typically do that is go to Slide. Again, there are very few slides in this one right now, but I would go pick it out of the list. And this one, when the user clicks on this object, and would continue by clicking on any of these objects, it would then take you and navigate you to the next, to the artifact itself, to the room where you could see this individual item. So here I have here's the small thumbnail. Here I have a larger version of this graphic. And then here I would put some information and text and other information about what this is and what it's all about. To finish, I would have to get us back to and navigate back to that room. So I can do that by inserting another shape. We can take an action button, and I could do very simply by saying Return button, or I could put this custom button, and I would say if it's going to be one slide of information, I could simply say to return to the last slide viewed. Or I could navigate back and say, take me back to that home screen, take me right back to there. And over here, I'm going to just make this a little bit lighter right now so we can see it. And then I'm going to say, return to the gallery. And I'm going to force the page return the line return right there to keep this balanced. And now, to see this work, when I run the show, and then the user would come through and say, okay, I'm seeing all these different artifacts. I'm going to click on this one, and they'll go and view more information about this, and then they'll click on Return to Gallery. Now, when I'm all finished with everything, remember that you're going to want to turn off the navigation in order to make this work. because what happens if a user clicks anywhere here? Well, right now, it's still PowerPoint. You're going to just navigate to the next slide, whatever that happens to hold. That's going to mess up the navigation big time. So, and it's going to remove the illusion of we're in a virtual place, in a virtual museum or gallery. So I'm going to go to Slideshow. I'm going to go to Setup Show. And then I'm going to go down to Browse at a Kiosk Full Screen. So when I do this, when I run this, I would now only be able to click on these action areas. Nothing else would be clickable. Nothing else would function. To access more information about virtual museums and also to gain access to a lot of resources, you can access Dr. Keeler's information at the website below. At this website, Christy talks about the background of the virtual museums, how she discovered them, and what was her inspiration to do so. And also she talks about the benefits to students and provides a whole bunch of templates to use. So now that you've seen how to create it, you can now tweak the templates that she provides according to your own particular needs. So let's go and take a look at some of the templates that she already provides. Now that you've seen how to create these, now let's take a look at some of the templates that Christy Keeler has created for us. And then you can tweak them accordingly. I'm going to start off with 4 rooms. You see, I'm going to download this right now. And 13 artifacts. So here's room 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can have also an artifact right up front here. Here's a link to learn about the person who created this. I can go back to the lobby, and notice all of this we can edit. So if I go into one of the rooms, now look at the nice template that's already created. And you know how Dr. Keeler created this, because here's a trapezoid, here's a rectangle, and here's a reverse trapezoid. Nice graphics, it looks very believable, and it creates a nice illusion of being in a virtual place. So that's 4 rooms that would hold 13 artifacts. Let's look at 4 rooms with 16 artifacts. I'm downloading it now. Notice a whole different feel. So we have various artifacts, and you can see our trapezoids and so on. We can go into different rooms right here. So it's a whole different feel to this one. Press for the curator, or in other words, the author of this. I'm going to click into 5 rooms that hold a total of 23 artifacts. And here you can see the trapezoids, you can see the rectangles, and it gives you that virtual feeling, that virtual reality type feeling. I'll click into one of the rooms so you can see what it looks like. And here she has created, as we find typically in a true art gallery, that we have all the paintings are of different sizes. And we can also have a primary artifact in the back right here. She also created a series of alternate templates, for example, a book list. So let me download that one, and let's take a look at this. So here we can click into different books, and in this case, she has information so it kind of looks like a book. So think about how you could use this with students. You could have students do book reports. So let's go to an actual book report format, where it feels like students have tabbed sections in a notebook. So they could click in and create the plot. So really these are the rooms. I'm going to click to return to the home page. And what's the setting? And the student would write that information there, and the characters and so on. So you see, it's still a virtual museum, just in an alternative way. We could also do this through a map. And in the map, you can create hotspots over the map. And in this case, you'll do so by dragging out, since there's not a one one item here, like a picture hanging on the wall, we would have to drag out an invisible button over certain areas here. And if we click into one of these places, again, it takes us to another room, if you will, and then the student can write, or the teacher can write information here for the students to explore, or the teacher, or sorry, or the student could create this and go back to the primary page. So now that you've seen how to create these, now you can go ahead and use some templates and know how to tweak them for your particular purpose. In summary, a virtual museum involves using tools regularly available in PowerPoint, but doing so in creative and innovative ways to create a virtual learning environment in which learners can explore more about content by clicking on into different rooms and clicking into individual artifacts. By doing this, a teacher can create an innovative learning experience and in which the learners can engage in both kinesthetically and also visually within a virtual world. Keep in mind that both teachers can create this for their students, and also students can research content and create these for other students or to share back with the teacher. Hope you enjoyed learning about virtual museums.